Hello, beautiful people, and welcome back to the weekly roundup. This is Outback Gamer, and I want to talk to you about everything I played this week. Well, it's a little bit delayed, so a week and a half. But on the outside, we finally finished Final Fantasy Online, Shadowbringers main storyline. Now, for those of you wondering, that took at least over 400 hours of gameplay and a month and a few days to finish the complete main storyline. And I skipped the last two expansions, every last cutscene. And now I believe if you watch those cutscenes, it would have been an extra month. So right here we have the wedding. Me and my wife of many years got married on the game again. Now there's some packages I just displayed on the screen. You can do it free. You can do it for different little packages which give different little things to your guests and you. Now we also opted for more expensive packages because you got a better outfit, better dresses, better suit, more dyeable clothing, and we also got a two-person mount, which was really cool. So we absolutely loved the wedding in game. This is actually one of the coolest things an MMO has ever done, is providing a blow for blow wedding that you can actually go through. It's so good. Oh my god. Now, here's a few of the package items that we got with ours and what you could get with other ones. So this is a dyeable clothing. We opted for straight white. We didn't dye. You get the emote brace. You get a lovely wedding cake for your room, and yes, I have one back in my place. That's for your gifts. That's what your guests get. Now, this is the two-person chookaboo. How awesome! So this is part of the ceremony. I just thought I'd display to you guys some of the cutscenes and things. This is just so beautiful. There's so many customizable things. Like, you can customize the look of each flower, each extra thing in the screen. You can customize the coloring. You can customize the way you come in, the way you go. This game never ceases to amaze me. One of the most impressive things is the fact that if you click on something, your character will literally look at that thing. Now, in MMOs, I'm not really sure if I've ever noticed that before, but yeah, you literally look at whatever you're clicked on in this game. That's really amazing that they have got like a head tracking. And you're not just looking at them, you're looking at their faces or their center mass. So that's all that I want to talk about with the wedding anyway. So, the other things we had was a few really cool dungeons on our way to crawl to finish the 80 content. This is me playing a samurai because I got my gladiator, my gunbreaker, and my summoner / scholar all to 80. And now I was just working up a samurai, which is probably one of my more favorite DPS classes. I'd rank samurai, then dancer easily, no problem. Samurai has a lovely little Sakura attack that it can do. They're high DPS and they're very active classes. So much fun to use. So much fun. No regrets running up these classes, but it is a bit of a shame that the tanks are 80. I might run up the other two tanks at some point, but I haven't got a lot of drive in me right now. I need a break from Final Fantasy after so many hours. So, the next thing I want to talk about is this giant Kraken. We found this thing on Heartbreaker Isle on a random 50 dungeon that we did. It is actually super impressive. Look at the size of it. So cool. So cool. You actually have to go through and kill all of its tentacles. Now, a lot of these fights we're playing by ear. We're not going to stop and Google every boss. This is a really cool thing that me, Booten, Sarah, and Daniel did. It's called House of the Dead. So you enter as a level 1 character, and it's got a really awesome theme about it, where it's like in a bit of a 2-bit dungeon theme. I'll show you in a second what the maps look like and things like that, but it's really impressive. The idea here is you start at level 1 and you level your characters all the way up to level 60. You defeat an in-game dungeon. Now, the things that you get as rewards is, depending on what level you clear, you get a bit of XP for your character, so you can use it to level your characters. As you go through, your characters, now as you can see here, the maps are done by little square rooms, which is really cool. And as you go through, you'll unlock little, what are they called? Pomaces, I think they were called. Like little circular things that can do different stuff. Like they can show you what the treasures are on the map. Now you'll get given these sacks that can give you a mount and all sorts of cosmetics and stuff from them if you're lucky enough. They come in bronze trimmed, silver trimmed, and gold trimmed. I only ever got bronze ones, and I got nothing that was that cool. I think I got like a pair of pants. That was a cosmetic. That was the coolest thing I got. As you can see, you level extremely fast in this mode. We began this race just before shutdown. Now, we didn't know it was going to shut down. We thought we had 2 hours, but we only had actually an hour. So we were racing as fast as we could. So I began with a Conjurer this time. Went back in with a Rogue a bit later because my Conjurer had leveled enough. Then I was quite happy with it. It got over 50, and then I got my Conjurer over 70 through dungeoning. So I was really happy with my Conjurer. But I really needed to level the Rogue after that slash Ninja. I got my Ninja up to 30 doing this actual House of the Dead content, which was really useful, to be honest. Now, in here, you'll get promises that give you, as we've gone over, promises that give you different abilities, concepts, and stuff. The cool weapons that we got on our back, they're called Aether Weapons. Now, you unlock certain chests that give you a +1 to your weapon or +1 to your armor. There's a chance of it upgrading your gear. Now, when you clear level 50, you can actually take 10 off your weapon slash shield or whatever you're using, like your weapons. You can take 10 off the weapons to produce a cosmetic for the weapons, which is super cool. Now that cosmetic can go to any of the class, so it's only going to cost you plus like -10 of your Aether weapon to make a weapon, but then you have to grind up your weapon again. So kind of painful, but look how good they look. These Aether weapons look so sweet. I really want one for the Gladiator. I really want one for the Conjurer. I really want one for the Gunbreaker and for the Samurai. So I think I need to grind up like 40 at some point. Now, you can looking for group this. It's really hard to get stages below 50 though. So you're not going to really find a pre-made group, like a random group below 50 because most people grind it at 50. They just do 50 to 60 constantly to grind up their weapons. Very little time. So if you've got some friends, it's really good to push through and try to get the 50 with those friends in one run. As soon as you get that done, it's super useful. Now, this was actually a really cool thing, though. I have to say that I haven't seen any MMO do this before. Do a really cool, like 1 to 50 private dungeon thing that you could do a delve. It's super fun. I've heard of other games use this mechanic, but never seen it in an MMO to this point. And the rewards are quite fun and worthwhile too. So you actually feel like this is really good content. Now, as I said, we did come back here because the server shut down. We didn't quite make it. So we came back here and I used a ninja this time. And this is the final boss. And now I'm using one of those promises. One of the promises, I actually fell in love with this promise. I used it to clear it to help us so many times. We were getting completely destroyed. This one turns me into like a griffin that one, I think it's a griffin, some kind of beast. And basically you can one-shot any mob, but obviously it doesn't one-shot the boss. But I think the other one that's very popular to use is the Succumbus. I think I've already used it. It increases her damage on her, so it can put up to 5 stacks of extra damage. Now, this fight was actually really, really hard. We looked it up beforehand too. So if you miss any of these things, it puts a ruin on the ground, and then she'll trigger at the end all the ruins to do massive damage. So we were fortunate enough though, because we were dropping the ball a bit and getting hit by this, causing ruins to pop up everywhere. But we were pretty fortunate that we had a healer that was pretty on the dot, and they got us. Well, that's the wifey. She got us over over the huge damage we're taking from the ruins constantly getting lit up. I think the 4 or 5 ruins is meant to be a complete wipe. I know for a fact we got to 4 or 5 ruins at least twice. Hey, but we killed her. And the cutscenes from it are pretty cool. You actually get a little ring as well that you can turn in, and I think you get a minion from it, if I remember, because it's meant to be the end of a story of some dead chick sort of thing. Um, this is something I highly recommend everyone has a go at, even if you're not much of a fan of this kind of genre. It's definitely worth to duck your head in and just have a bit of fun. And this is relaxing compared to leveling in other ways because it can get really tedious, really stressful to just queue dungeon after dungeon. Although I have to admit, 100%, the experience is way more reliable just going through dungeons. So, but this one has the benefits of the Aether weapon, cosmetics, and things. So, yeah, any way you want to think about it. Now, this is actually another really cool thing that I haven't seen in any other MMO. Super, super excited about this. It's super cool. So once you get the Shadowbringers, you can actually do dungeons with a group of NPCs. Now, the NPCs are actually really good for the most part. Like, I got kind of a little bit annoyed with queuing with people near the end there because I just really wanted to finish the story so badly. So I ended up just using the NPCs a lot personally, and it kind of sucks because if you die, the NPCs all sort of reset and takes you back to where you last died. But the normal dungeon stuff, like the shortcuts and things, is still there, so you can do any dungeon you want with a group of NPCs, and it's really super chillax, really comfortable. Like, say you need to get up and go get the groceries or something. At this point, you definitely can, 100%. You want to go make yourself a cup of coffee and come back. You're not making anybody wait for you, and you can just continue enjoying dungeons. It's actually revolutionary, and I really hope more MMOs pick up this sort of style. Now, in Shadowbringers, this was a really cool thing. The light had sort of overpowered the world, and what you're watching is there's sort of like angels, like big white angel kind of guys, and they're going around and they're turning everyday people and monsters and things into these white angel looking things. And I think they call them, what do they call them? The Cured or something like that. But it's super cool. They can turn any creature into these white creatures of light things. Um, Highly recommend it though, guys. Seriously, Shadowbringers is definitely a breath of fresh air. By the time you get to it, the way it plays, you will have no doubt in your mind that Final Fantasy is not like any other MMO you've played, and it's well worth it because of that, though. That's the whole thing. Any other MMO doesn't do what this game does. That said, that 400-hour grind was really painful. I've never done that in like any other MMO or game, and I have to feel that's the worst grind I've had in probably like the last 5 or 6 years, and that includes sitting through all of Cyberpunk in 1 hour in one sitting. I smashed that game right through from the end to the start. So what you're seeing here is one of the last bosses. I think you fight this guy in a dead city, and he's really really cool. And then you fight the warrior of light herself, which is an angel chick. The angel chicks, the warrior light chicks, you can actually see them in the Shadowbringers trailer. Like they actually just appear if you watch the intro trailer thing. There's one of the white angel things there is in that, and that explains what those things are. Oh, this is really cool too. With the summoner, at this point, I could summon the Phoenix as well, and it's really cool having the Phoenix abilities because the Phoenix has an instant cast attack, which then causes an instant cast massive AoE attack. Such a cool creature. As you know too, the Summoner eventually can summon Bahamut, so the Summoner ends up being probably one of the most powerful classes in my opinion, coming with a combat res as well. And I'm really happy I picked it for the first class. At first, I thought I doomed myself to this terrible, slow DPS class, but it ends up doing more AoE than I've seen any other class ever do. Um, Definitely worth it. Arcanist is probably something I'd recommend you start first because it also gives you a healer at the worst case scenario. Really, really worth it. So at the end of the week, Booten had decided he was starting to burn out in Final Fantasy, and I can completely understand it. And I was just wanting to finishing the storyline, so I wasn't quite there yet. But we both picked up this game on release. This game is called Valdeheim. Now, Valdeheim is a Viking survival exploration open world game where you start with a randomly generated map. You can play from 1 to 10 players. The developers highly recommend playing with 3, at least because the content is very challenging. There it has bows, building, crafting, sea combat. I actually struggled to play a bit because I have some network issues with him on here on his server. I lag up really, really badly, and we couldn't play together. So that's my only thing about that. But I will be, now that I finished Final Fantasy per se, I can just log in and do my dailies and things with Final Fantasy now and really enjoy the last bit of content and actually do it a bit more slower. I'm going to actually probably turn on the server for this game and get the full amount from it and probably feature it. So, what I want to talk to you guys about is that now that Final Fantasy is to a point where I can just touch on it every now and then, I'm going to be starting probably a new series where I load up my Steam playlist, which is absolutely gigantic if you're wondering. And I'm going to play every single game of that Steam playlist. And I'm going to play it for one day, and then I'm going to make a video at the end of the day. So hopefully we'll get some gems in there. Some of them I've played recently, so things like what was it, Misunfortunate or something like that. I played that one recently. But I'll have to obviously play it through Act 3. It's at an M, so I've got lots of games to play through before then, so hopefully I won't forget it. Final Fantasy we'll obviously skip when we get there, because even if I spend a whole day in Final Fantasy, I've really good. I've spent like 5 videos on it. Anyway, thanks for joining me, guys. Hopefully you've enjoyed this content, and I'll see you all later.